all of you. Hi, Mark Anthony Lord.
Hello. Glad to be with you.
Glad to be with you. So I was thinking as I was getting ready for this morning that you were going to begin your In the Room series this month. Is that correct?
Yes, I've sent in that we haven't connected on the final thing, but I believe it starts in a week or two.
Fantastic. So why don't you tell, this is being recorded, so why don't you tell everybody a little bit about that because they can find you on that platform as well.
Sure, I'm happy to do that. And I want to make sure I need to give me one moment to turn around because I want it to be a little better in the view. Sorry, there we go.
This is all live, people. You can tell.
All live. All right, that's going to be better.
That's better. Yeah. The backlighting is, gives you that nice glow, but
Exactly. That's from the bulb here.
Yeah,
Anyway.
no, but the window was like glow and you couldn't see your face as well. So this is better. So
Yes. So anyway, yeah, I'm going to be starting a Sunday evening, 6 p.m. Eastern time, spiritual gathering, spirituality and recovery, and it will really be focused on kind of what we do here once a month. There'll be hopefully more interaction and sharing. So we're going to dive into the spirituality of the program, and I want to create a place for people to grapple and for people to grow and for people to bump up against the old beliefs that are blocking them from surrendering, to God, higher power, or whatever it is. The spiritual part of the program for a lot of people can be the most challenging, but I've also seen when people go for it and have their breakthroughs, it can be the most rewarding part of the program, of course, along with sobriety, which is the number one gift, one day at a time. So Sunday nights, 6 p.m. in the rooms, spirituality and recovery.
well, that'll be awesome and much needed. I was thinking, when I'm out for my runs in the morning with my dog, that's a lot of thinking time. But I was thinking, with all the chaos going on in our world right now, and I thought, I don't love it, and it is challenging, but I don't feel like I'm being tossed, in the sea. And I thought, I think that is because, I have a grounding in, in a higher power and in my spirituality. I mean, all of those things, help me. So anyway, so I'll shut up. I would love to hear more from you today.
Awesome. Thank you, Tammy. Hey, and thanks everyone for showing up. Those of you who are here, really appreciate it. I don't know if you went over this with them yet, Tammy, about putting in the chat and participation.
Yeah, chats, if you're just mentioning a comment, but at the bottom of the screen is the Q&A. Feel free to add any questions, that you would like to ask Mark Anthony Lord, and I will, read those to him. But yeah, chat, if you've got a comment or anything. I will put a link for the In the Room so that you can all find that. So in addition to Mark's session on Sundays, Dr. Rob is on there every Friday night. Dr. David is on every Tuesday night with his ChemSex group. So, and we've got the next Super Saturday Recovery Summit, which Mark Anthony Lord was part of previously. So, but that will be June 20th. So lots of information. And of course, you can always reach out to me too. But yeah, please participate with the questions or, chat too.
Beautiful. All right. So today we're going to focus on the spirituality of the sixth step, which is a really rich, beautiful, important conversation. It's right in the middle of the recovery journey. It's the time where the real surrendering to spirituality is beginning to happen. Not my life, but thy will be done is really the deep prayer that we move into. But let's begin with a little bit of centering. I always like to begin our time together with just some meditation, like 3 to 4 minutes, focusing on our breath. I keep it very, very simple for myself. I focus on the sensation on the tip of my nose of the inhale. I follow the breath and the exhale, and I just focus. And sure, my mind wanders, and then I go, oh, my mind wandered, and I release the thought, and I return back to the feeling of the breath. It's a good focal point. So that might work for you today if you want to join me in that, or whatever works. I'm going to close my eyes. If you can do that too, take a nice, slow, deep breath. Exhale. Maybe move your head around a little bit. Throw your shoulders back. Get a little bit of movement. Maybe reach your arms out. We get so contracted physically, and it's just good to stretch a little bit before a meditation so that oxygen can flow more freely. Focusing on our breath, feeling the sensation of the inhale, following it down to the pit of the stomach, noticing the turnaround when it becomes an exhale. Let us just be in the silence together, breathing. Take a nice, slow, deep breath. Affirm within yourself, I am here now. Imagine cutting the cords to the past, letting that disappear, cutting the cords to the future. Nothing happening over there. Right here and right now is where spirit is. Right here and right now is where your higher power is. And right here and right now is where the recovery is. So I say yes to that for myself and for each of us here. And we bring our meditation to a close with the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. All right, opening your eyes whenever you're ready. So I'm going to kind of go into my thoughts and a lecture, if you will, on this experience of the sixth step, really the spiritual principle inside of it. And then we'll have a experience of it, a little practice to help you deepen in it, and then open to any sharing, thoughts, questions, of course, especially during this time of the pandemic. We know that a lot of, and the upset is just in the air. And part of what my faith and keeps me anchored in is I have a phrase that I truly believe. It's not just a phrase, but it is that everything is happening for me. Everything is happening for me. Now, that's not total narcissism or ego. It really means that in my world, whatever's happening, there's a gift in it. That my higher power, I call my higher power God, whatever name of yours is perfect, of course. But for me, I'm so loved and cared for and guided and even guarded. Doesn't mean I don't have to walk through certain things in life that I do have to walk through. I do. But I've really come to believe that this universe loves me, my God loves me, and that whatever's happening in the world, there's something for me to learn, there's something for me to become, there's something for me to give. It's a way that I listen and a way that I do my best to respond to the world. And the core, the spirituality of the sixth step really is like rock and roll in the center of it. The sixth step says we became willing to ask God to remove our defects of character. We became willing. So willing is the word. It is the spiritual practice. And willingness is one of the essentials of recovery according to the big book. So I read this on the internet. It is one of the indispensable principles of the 12-step program, together with honesty and open-mindedness. The centrality of these three to our sobriety is aptly conveyed by the acronym we have coined out of them, HOW. So that is honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. So it's in the big three. It's the three legs of the stool. And for addicts, it's one of the hardest things to embrace. Well, all of them are challenging, being honest, that a lifetime of lying is a lot to undo, to create a new habit of honesty, but that's what we're called to do. Open-mindedness, we've gotten ourselves in a lot of trouble, but open-mindedness is where we've got to go if we want to learn and become someone new. And it's the willingness in all directions, the willingness to let go of the past, the willingness to surrender all of our stories of protection and how life is or isn't for me, how people are or aren't for me. I mean, all the stories that we use to keep ourselves trapped in our suffering. We have to be willing to let go of that. But the deeper calling, and this isn't just in 12-step program, I believe for everyone, but we have the special gift of being in 12-step recovery, which means we say yes to walking our spiritual path. And the deepest gift is the willingness ultimately to surrender fully who we think we are, what we think we're here for. I mean, it's the mother lode of surrender, of like, okay, I use me fully, use me completely. That is the game. Ultimately, I believe that we're here to play. But thank God the program says we can do it imperfectly. And thank God the program says do it one day at a time. So willingness is a big, large umbrella idea of the program. And willingness is just a practice that you can do baby steps along the way. Really, what sits at the center of this is willingness to let go of our way and say, God, thy will be done, right? And this is what we bump up against because it requires trust. We've got to trust. We talked about that last month in the spirituality of the 5th step. And it continues on throughout that when we can trust, see, and this is how it goes. If you trust that someone's going to be there for you, then you're willing to give them the reins. If you trust that someone's really at the core of their being, ready to take care of you and do what they have to do, then you're willing to hand over and let them and allow them to do it. But for many of us, we didn't experience that in our childhood. So this is one of the spiritual healings that is the gift of recovery. The healing is in our ability to not only become better at being willing, but to reprogram our minds and our past and our current day experience that there actually is something that I can trust, that I can give the reins to today. I have proof from how? From doing it in baby steps 1,000 times and then 1,000 times more. And those little steps along the way, they do add up until suddenly you have enough information inside you to go, the more willing I become to let go, the more willing I become to do what I'm guided to do in the program, the more willing I become to give my time and energy to my own spiritual awakening, the more I do, the gifts come pouring in. Your life becomes a proof. And someone says, how did you get to where you are? You can look back and there'll be a day when you go, I was just willing, one day at a time, to keep willing to let go, to keep letting it go, and to be shown new ways to operate, new ways to think, new ways to speak, new ways to not speak, and just keep our mouths shut for a little while. These are the things that we're called to do in this program. And the 6th step specifically Again, we became willing to ask God to remove our defects of character. And I think the middle part is the really cool part. Ask God to remove these defects. You see, our bloated ego, our bloated part of the addict within us, whatever word you want to use, that part that believes it's separate from the love of your higher power, that part always thinks it has to do the heavy lifting. It has to figure out, like, oh, how am I going to change? How am I going to become who I need to be? How am I going to do this? And as soon as we start asking those questions, we're in trouble. We're in trouble because we are taking on the job that isn't our job. Our job is at the beginning of the sentence. We became willing. And then our job is very clear. Ask. Just ask. To ask God, higher power, higher self. And what are we asking them for? To alleviate the character defects, the ways of my thinking and acting and feeling that are habits that keep me from growing in the love or the sobriety or whatever word you use that I am. The ways that you act and think and be that aren't serving you. This thing called God is the one that does it. I don't know how. I have no idea how to remove these dark points inside my thinking and inside my behavior. But I don't need to know how. And that's the setup. That's where we all get stuck. How is that going to happen? How am I going to change? Not your problem. And not even your inquiry. Your inquiry is to ask and then allow it to. The willingness is in the asking and then opening up and allowing things to happen. And the program is so beautiful, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. That's around the 10th step, the 9th step. I think you'll correct me on that, Tammy. But the change does come over time, and it comes through the portal of willingness. Many of us, not even knowingly, do life like this, right? We're just holding on because that's what we had to do. That's how we were taught, and we're just holding on to if you're early in recovery, or someone in your life that you're very close to is early in recovery, it's like we're all holding on to the edge of the boat, and the boat is being thrown by gigantic waves in the ocean. So I get that this is what it's like. I know the feeling, but this is what it has to become. That's willingness. Like that, there's no better demonstration. Unwilling, willing. Do that with me. Seriously, just have a sensation of that. Hold your fist. Make them tight. I am unwilling. This is what unwilling, shut down, close, holding. This is what it feels like. Take a breath. Open it up. Leave that open. This is what willingness feels like. Do you get the difference? And if we turn our hands over, they become receptacles. You now are open to receive and be shown a new way. So that is the absolute best demonstration of it. But back to the middle part of this, that God is the one that removes the defects of character. I have come to know that only by proof in my life. As I said, the more I practice, the more my faith grows. The more my faith grows, the more my experience is. The more my experience is great, the more I'm willing to let go. It's like a perfect little circle that gets stronger and stronger and stronger until you literally do have a transformation. I don't know how gravity works. I don't even know how any laws at the very heart of them, the physical laws of the universe, the spiritual laws of being, the mathematical laws. I mean, there's so many amazing things that are holding the universe together. Us on this planet, the sun rising and setting, everything around you, the miracle of life that is happening that somehow, without me even, I mean, you can figure it out, but I don't spend time there. The food arrives at the grocery store. I go to the grocery store. I get to pick it up and give them some money and go home. And like my life is so much easier. Like there's so much support happening in the universe all the time. And as I continue to look at that and see that, the hope is that it'll bring a bit of awe. Wow, there is something here working. And that something that is working is the very same thing that will remove your defects of character. That's how I've come to know it. This magnificent life that keeps the stars and the moons and the galaxies in place and everything rotating around each other, and the balance and the harmony of nature, and that brilliant life that keeps things unfolding and growing even when humanity wants to destroy it and tear it down, and it rebirths itself yet again. That life is that something that also holds me as so sacred and important to it, enough so that when I ask for help, the defects of character that are blocking me from having a greater experience of spiritual freedom and sobriety become removed. Not my business on how, not your business. And part of it is, again, building that worthiness, that you're that loved. I mean, that is one of the gifts that I have today, that I don't know quite how I got it, but I'm forever grateful. Like, I'm flipping worthy. Like, I am worthy of the love of this God that wants to help me. It's a wonderful feeling, especially when I didn't feel that way as a kid. I thought for sure God was burning me in hell. I was first in line, was my guess. So come a long way in that one. I want to back up one more thing, and then I'm going to do a little experience, and then I'll toggle back to you and see how you're tracking with this conversation, and I'll do a little guided experience. But the other key word, your part in the equation, is to ask. And the asking, I try not to get all Bible on us, and I'm not a big Bible scholar. I'm not, even though I'm a minister. I'm not. It's like I love it, but I'm not like a fundamental Christian scholar of the Bible. It's not how I was trained. But there are a few quotes that just really move me, and they're very positive and loving. And one of them is simply, it's 3 stanzas, but the first one is, ask and it shall be given. And to me, and that was written centuries ago, that is a promise. That's a promise that says, when I do my part, it will be given. And it tells me exactly what my part is. Ask, and it shall be given. Now, in this step, we became willing to ask God, right? So I'm going to back up a little more step, and this is the point. We became willing. So became is an important word. How do we become willing? That's in the activity. That's in the baby steps. That's in the practice. And I'll get to some of those in a moment. But let me toggle back to you and see how you're doing, what thoughts are coming forward.
There's is so much here. I've heard all this. I've heard lots of the big book stuff, like the how, honest, open-minded, willingness. But, like you hear this stuff and then you hear it again, and it's always more deeper layers. And I thought, like I loved that clenching. Well, I don't love the clenching, but I loved the exercise where he had us clench. And I thought, and I paid attention, and I was like, it's my arms, it's my shoulders, it's my gut. Like everything is all clenched. And I thought, and that's what I do when I'm trying to hold on to control, when I'm trying to make something happen. Yeah. And the beauty, like the freedom I felt when I just relaxed and turned it over, and the literal turning over of my hands, I thought, wow, that is meaningful and significant versus this to be this. So very powerful. And I hope that those of you that have joined us did that along with us, because it's one of those where I think having those I think having those kind of meaningful visuals and physical things to do is enlightening, and a good reminder of, if I'm hanging on and doing all this. I hear all the time from addicts, and I love addicts, please, and I love partners. I really am so, but I hear all the time that I'm going to do this, and I'm going to figure this out myself. And I'm thinking, that's how you got to call me in the first place. And I have a lot of addicts tell me how smart they are. And honestly, I really believe it. I've been around the rooms a long time. The addicts are smart, but our best thinking got us to the point where we're going like, this isn't really helpful and everybody's mad at me, and it's, and for some of them it's life and death. But the whole being worthy, I was like, yes, yes. I was muted, but I was like, I'm acknowledging, that whole thing of just being able to go, yeah, I am worthy. I'm, to throw off some of that shame and just go, I do have worth, just intrinsic worth, not for what I do or don't do, but just intrinsic worth. And I thought for addicts that one of the hardest things that we have is to ask for help, whether it's from another human being or God. And for me, sometimes me asking God also involves asking a human being, and that I just need to reach out and ask for help. So that being willing is so key and so challenging for, in different moments. So I really love too that you said it's baby steps. So I practice, but when you were talking about the spiral, I thought the spiral also goes in reverse, because the more I start taking control of it, the less I'm attached and the less freedom I have. So if I have the circle going in the right direction, I'll continue to practice good things, that help me. And as soon as I start, cranking it in reverse, I'm going to end up all clenched up again. So this is great stuff, Mark.
Oh, I always look forward to your thoughts after I share, because you always add to it so wonderfully. So thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, it is great stuff. I do see a question.
Yes,
I do.
somebody, and this is a great question, and what you're sharing too. Any thoughts on balancing moral requirements to stand up to injustice and the need to not dwell in instead feelings of anger, shame, and fear at the risk of losing sobriety? This person happens to be located just a few minutes away from Minneapolis, St. Paul. So if you're reading or watching this on YouTube later, this is this is a challenging time. We have rioting, and it's very difficult. So what are your thoughts on how do we balance the need to moral requirements to stand up to injustice, protect ourselves, not fall into shame? What do you think?
Yeah, it is a good question. I'm really glad that we can address the times, which is really also what we're here for. So I want to say to Jonathan, who I know is writing this, that I want to invite you to rephrase some of this a little bit. Just consider it, because you wrote moral requirements to stand up to injustice. And what I want you to know, in my opinion, is your number one requirement, if you will, is your sobriety. And that is the first gift that you give to the world. So I know it's easy to be like, yeah, but I got to get out there and march. I want to make a difference. And I'm not saying don't, but I am saying that as people in sobriety, our sobriety is all we have. And if we don't have that, then nothing is going to come out of that. So I really do believe that for one person in recovery, they are called to go out there and march and be a part of something. And they can do that from their sobriety, and they can bring their sobriety to whatever's happening, which becomes the gift that they're bringing energetically. Where the very next recovering person, the best gift they can give is to stay home and go to a meeting or take care of themselves. So I just want to say that because they're not mutually exclusive and both people are contributing. When we are contributing to our sobriety and our health and our well-being, we are a part of something that is growing in the right direction. Now, I acknowledge that. And the second part is, how do you go out there? And it really is about, number one, check your sobriety. You might want to do a call. You can do some very basic steps of bookending your experience of calling your sponsor or someone in program or something like, I'm going to go participate in this in 2 hours. I'll be back, whatever. Like we forget that we can be a good parent to ourselves and give ourselves a little bit of parameters that say, yes, maybe one person will throw themselves out there into the wild for 8 hours straight. What I can do is I go out there for 90 minutes and I can be a part of something. But at that 90-minute point, I'm going to pull myself out and do a real strong check-in and maybe take myself home or do whatever I need to do. You see, we require extra care. And if you believe yourself worthy of it, you deserve it, you'll give yourself with that. So pre-planning is key to how you want to participate. Take care of yourself. The same way that if I'm doing no sugar and I'm going to a wedding, I damn well better make sure that I've got a plan. And what am I going to do? And sometimes it'll be like, call my sponsor from the wedding. Like there's lots of ways to take care of yourself if you want to be out in the world and be a part of this and make a difference. And then finally, the other point that I think is important for everybody, and everybody doesn't do this, but again, spiritual people have a higher calling, in my opinion, because we're awake a little more. Where are you doing it from? Because if you're doing it from a place in you that's angry and hateful and thinks that they're wrong and they need to change, and if you're focusing all of that, like the problems out there, that will backfire. You will be the first and maybe the last, wherever along the line, you'll be the recipient that will ricochet back at you. And we can't afford to do things like that. Now, what I mean by this exactly is if I step out into anything, I pray up, I know that every person is an emanation of God. Now, they may not be acting like it. They're certainly not doing life the way I think they should, but I wasn't appointed to be God of all. So I get myself right-sized, I get myself prayed up, and I know that everyone is trapped. The people like that, and that was teachings of Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King used to pray for the people he was marching against before they marched, because he knew that they were trapped in so much pain. The white people were trapped in so much racism, and racism is not freedom. So he knew everyone was hurting. Of course, he knew the black people and brown people were the ones getting the pain, the abuse, of course, and that was what needed to change. But it was a system that everyone was born into. And so to have the heart of compassion for everyone involved while you're taking a stand for what is true, you get yourself anchored inside of yourself in that part. And my experience is you're going to have a much better experience of doing what you feel called to be a part of. So that was a long answer, but bottom line, we as addicts need more care before, during, and after. And that's just how it goes. And if you're willing to give yourself that, you will, I believe you'll be fine. And if you're not fine, if you find yourself on the edge of something, you're a phone call away from someone, right? So that's my thought. Anything to add to that,
No,
Tammy?
I love that. And, I like the pray up, right size. I've been really focused on all lives matter right now. I mean, that's kind of been my, all lives matter. And, I'm not the judge and jury. And, I'm trying to understand everyone's perspective on this. I like what you're just sharing is like you have, I was talking to my husband and I said, it's like a prism, and we are looking at, we're all looking at the same thing, but we're looking through different sides. So our view of things is different. And for me, the best thing I can do is understand someone else's perspective, and if I'm able to have a dialogue, that's great, and some people aren't in a place where they want to do that. So, I'm also, what can I do to be a positive source and force within these challenging times. And I'm trying to be supportive of people, and I was like, what can I really do? I can help people with addiction. I can't solve all the other stuff out there. I can't solve this, but I can.
You weren't called to do that out there. You were called to do what you're doing, and that is an important piece of the pie.
Yeah.
Of the puzzle of life. It's not less than at all. Like, it's so important. And again, I want to start with where we began answer that question, which you're speaking to too, is like, we have got to, over our sobriety is number one. And that's it. And do you have the willingness, staying on this spiritual word, do you have the willingness to put it so primary forward that even though you may have that activist in you, that's like, I got to get out there, but you've also got that parenting part inside you that says, but you're not sober enough today. Like, you know what I mean? To love yourself, if it means staying home, is my point. It's important.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, it's like one of those things. What can I do in this day to help someone? And for me, it's answer the phone, answer the emails, and any, for those that are looking to change their lives,
Mhm.
and addiction, like throughout all of this, including the pandemic. It's like addiction is spiking, and that's one thing we actually can be a little bit of I appreciate that we're here talking about how do we do sobriety, how do we do this better, how do we look at recovery, what spiritual aspects can we, I love, I think, with the step 6 and 7, we'll get to 7 next month, but those are often overlooked. So peeling this back and looking at it from a spiritual perspective is really valuable.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Any other thoughts on that? I see Jonathan, thanks, can confirm Tammy and SI were the first steps on me
Mm.
being able to have the presence to ask this question.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. That made me, oh, that's good. So,
It is beautiful. Good
yeah,
work. So
yeah.
yeah, the healing of the world is coming from a lot of different places. And I believe the 12-step program is one of the largest waves of transformation in our world. I say that whenever many times when I'm out speaking and teaching in the world, I will say, when I'm referencing the 12 steps, I will say, I believe it is the second coming. That's what I
Mm.
call it. I do, because the first coming they say was this guy Jesus. I don't know if it is or isn't, but fine. In that story, this guy came and he brought this big wave of love and no one understood it and whatever. Now they said there's a second coming. And I believe the second coming is a wave of healing that isn't one person, but it's a wave of love that billions of people will become a part of. So I just have a feeling like hundreds of years from now, people will look back in the 1900s and go, the birth of the 12-step program was a spiritual breakthrough in humanity. I,
I love that. And, and I believe because to take, I think addicts are smart. I think we're really broken too. And to take a bunch of broken people, and help us as a group be able to help other people. For an addict to get out of themselves and be able to extend the hand and go, I've done this, I can guide you. I mean, think about, I'm confident. We've shared enough stories that I'm confident in your addiction. You weren't really thinking about how to help other people. You were really kind of focused on how you can act out next, and that's
yeah,
what was going on for me. So for me to care about other people is like, I mean, who could believe that?
yeah, yeah, I hear you. Also, I want to, when you were sharing, made me think of something. I want to see if I can, leave my mind a little bit, but oh shoot, I hope I'll remember it. Something about shame that was coming up. But anyway, I'll find it or I won't.
Well, it's all, yeah. I think I said something about, I didn't have to keep carrying, being worthy. And we were talking about being worthy and not having to carry the shame board. Does that ring a bell?
No, yeah, no, I don't remember. That's okay.
It's all good.
Yeah. So I want to get to a few things, and then toss back to you all for any final thoughts or anything. So how do we become willing? So that was the question. A few and simple things to do. I gave you one of them. You can literally, whenever we can activate a physical expression of it, I am always happier because I want it to be not just a thought thing where I'm stuck in my head, because that's part of the problem. I need to get into my body over and over and over. So that example of like, I'm unwilling, to locate yourself where you are, don't make it wrong, acknowledge it. Wow, I'm not going to pretend. This is where red dot, that's one of my favorite things, red dot, I'm here now. I'm standing on the red dot that says, I am unwilling. So physicalize that for me. And then with an out breath and with your words, and you're opening your hands, I am becoming willing. Like live flower, open your hands. I am unwilling. I am becoming willing. And if you do that a couple times, you'll feel the breathing and the opening, and you feel a relaxation that begins to happen, that you're leading with your physical body doing it, but as a physical body is moving into the relaxation of willingness, because willingness requires relaxation. As you do that, the mind also will simultaneously begin to be letting go. And you could go back and forth 10 times, but the more you do, you're going to kind of unwilling, fully willing, you're going to sort of bring it to zero. You're going to sort of neutralize it and bring it where you can be sitting in the middle. And that is a easy thing to do in your car, wherever you are, pretty much. You know, if you work in a cubicle in an office, you can stand there and just close your eyes and do it a couple times. It's easy. The stall of a bathroom, anywhere where you can have a physical sensation of the unwillingness and a physical sensation of letting it go is very rich. And the other thing that is my number one and number two and number three go to is getting on my knees. I talk about that all the time. And I am this, raised Catholic boy that never wanted to do it, was up and down on my knees. If you've ever gone to a Catholic mass, let me tell you something. It is crazy how up and down they have in their ritual. So I was not about it. But the reason I'm about it today is it's just like you used these words earlier, Tammy, and I didn't use them, but you did, about the right sizing. There's something about when I get bloated, my bloated nothingness, as Emerson calls it, that bloated nothingness is what needs to come down. And so as that comes down, a way to physically symbolize my shrinking of that bloatedness is to get down on my knees and pray. My favorite prayer is the third step prayer. It is the surrender prayer. And in that is a boatload of willingness. So begin your day and end your day on your knees for 21 days. And I guarantee you, and I'll start with you because I have been a little off. So I'm going to start today. After this meeting, I'm going to get on my knees and I'm going to do it at night. 21 days of doing that. And I promise you, life begins to flow. Solutions begin to come. That thing where God is doing for you what you can't do for yourself, there will be some experiences in it. That's how simple our part is. Remember, the sixth step is like, became willing to ask. That's our part in this step. And then God removes the defects of character. So not our job. Our job is to ask, to do it humbly, to acknowledge where we are, to get to the willingness in whatever way we can. And I find that physical movement is a great way to do that. So
you just said the 21-day commitment. So I'm going to invite everybody who's on here. I will put my email address in the chat, but I'm going to commit to doing that. And if you want to check in with me, send me an email and going done today or whatever. I would love to have that commitment. It's obviously an option, but I'm committing to all of you that I'm going to do that too.
I am too. I could use it at this time of my, I can always use it, but and I do it, but I don't do it with like a 21-day commitment program, like what I'm speaking out what I need. So thank you for joining me, Tammy. And if anyone else wants to join the team. All we're talking about is praying on our knees in the morning and at night. We're probably talking about a minute to 2 minutes of your day.
And the third step prayer is a good one. So
the third step prayer is a great one, but you can get on your knees and just say, God, please help me. The willingness is the most part. But yes, third step prayer is the one that really I just feel in my bones. So those are the practices that I offer you today. Remember the clenching, I am unwilling, I am willing. Toggle back and forth. And really each time you open up, even do it slowly, really play with that. Let your body be a part of it. And then the other one is our 21-day challenge, which is to pray on our knees or to ask to just connect with your higher power in the morning and the evening on your knees. That's it. That's it for me today, my friends. And any other thoughts or questions for us?
No, that's great. I'm actually going to put a post-it. I do this all the time. I put post-it notes around my computer, and I'm going to do my check-in to see if I'm starting to clench up, because I'm going to go, oh, there must be some control and unwillingness in there. So I'm going to put a willingness post-it note on my computer.
Awesome. 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 This is one day at a time. And these are very challenging times. And, I don't know about you, Tammy, but I tend to go kind of numb. So I have to pay attention to, I'm not the guy that gets fired up and is screaming and yelling and sort of like I'm out of control energetically. I shut down. And when I'm shut down, it's like, that's when it's a little dangerous for me. So I have to really pay attention and go, oh, okay, drink some water. Okay, talk to a friend, keep myself connected, because that was my survival MO as a child, was to just check out. I don't know. I just popped out of my body before I knew it. Sometime I left my body, and then I was like dangerous. So for me, I want to stay really conscious to stay in my body and stay present. Whatever, again, there's lots of different ways. Know yourself, and know that during this time of such enormous challenge, that our character defects can get exaggerated.
And ask for help, like from people and from your higher power. Like this is, this is not a weakness. This is not like, oh, I'm being a burden. We all need to be connected in a healthy way to other people and our higher power. So
yes. In normal times, every day. In these times, even more. So, all right. Well, I hope you all will join me in the rooms. I believe it starts the 15th. Is that the Sunday? Yes. No. The 7th, the 14th.
Yes. And if you haven't been on intherooms.com, and I put it in the chat, it's free, but you do need a membership. So you just sign up, and then you can get into all the meeting spaces. But there's a lot of great things there. So I hope you will do that. And the Super Saturday Recovery Summit will be coming up again June 20th. We've got a great lineup again. So this is becoming it's a really cool thing. So I'm glad you were a part of it. And
it's so cool. I will be there attending.
Oh, great.
For sure. Oh yeah, it's good. I mean, you guys have such high quality people. It's wonderful.
Dr. Stan Tatkin's going to lead off the day with his We Do. He's got it's such good relationship stuff, and I thought particularly in these times when we really need to look at we rather than just me. So I think it'll be it'll be a fun day. I am blessed to be able to host. So
yeah, beautiful. All right, my friend. Always good to see you, Tammy.
Great. Thank you.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.